.org, the War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman with Juan Gonzalez. Our guest for the hour is Democracy Now! Special correspondent who's just returned from Cairo last night, Anjali Kamat. Well, the U.S. Embassy in Cairo has announced that future exports of U.S.-made tear gas could be blocked if the Egyptian authorities continue to use it to cause death and injury. The Obama administration faced scrutiny after Egypt's Interior Ministry ordered 21 tons of tear gas from the U.S. following days of mass protests against military rule. The countless tear gas canisters, the majority of them American-made by a company called Combined Systems, were launched by security forces at civilians, causing serious injuries. On Tuesday, State Department spokesperson Mark Toner was questioned about the shipments.
I want to go back to something that was raised last Tuesday about some reports that the Egyptian military had been using tear gas, American-made tear gas, against the protesters. And while I know that Toria said that there weren't any pending independent company wishes to sell directly to the Egyptian military, there was the state was looking into this. And my question is, do we know whether there are any pending sales from U.S. companies apart from government weapon sales? And specifically, do we know whether the U.S. has ever approved the sale of something called Combined Tactical Systems 6230 Riot CS Smoke? I guess it's a brand of tear gas.
I'm not sure I can get into that level of detail, but as I think Toria specified last week, no U.S. security assistance funds have been used for the purchase of tear gas by the Egyptian government. We have approved previous licenses for the export of tear gas to the Egyptian Interior Ministry, and that was paid for with Egyptian funds. And our understanding, and maybe this speaks to the type of tear gas that you just asked about, our understanding is that the tear gas approved for export has been the type of that's used by police forces in many countries around the world. We certainly would condemn the misuse, any misuse of tear gas anywhere that could result in death or injury.
But Mark, considering with the violence we saw last week and the fact that you've got a 21-ton shipment, three-part arriving now, some of it in Suez right now, doesn't that kind of send a mixed message from the U.S. government? I mean, I know on one hand, the U.S. Embassy in Cairo this morning tweeted U.S. security assistance funds were not being used for tear gas. That's a genuine fact. Another tweet said the U.S. is providing humanitarian assistance to victims but has condemned excessive force. But what does that say then when you've got tear gas shipments arriving in the port of Suez with made in the USA on the side of them?
Well, it's as I said, this tear gas is approved for export to many countries around the world. It's used by police forces in many countries around the world, including our own.
But you've seen instances, haven't you, in the past week or so where it's been misused?
Let me just finish with my last point, which was saying that we certainly condemn the misuse of tear gas that would result in death or injury, and any kind of misuse to that extent would certainly cause us to give us pause, I think, and has the potential to jeopardize future exports.
So what can be done then?
It's really a lot of the evidence and the stories that we've heard have been circumstantial. So I'm really hesitant to
But you were looking into
pass judgment.
That was State Department spokesperson Mark Toner being questioned about the use of U.S.-made tear gas, particularly a company, Combined Systems, based in Jamestown, Pennsylvania. Anjali, talk about the effect of the tear gas and what you just heard Toner saying.
Well, I think it's remarkable that Toner said it's okay to use the tear gas because we use it here as well in the U.S. It's used in other countries, and it's, we use it here, so it doesn't matter if Egypt uses it. But the way the tear gas was used in Tahrir, whether in late January, January 28th, or now, the past week, it's been excessive. I visited the morgue in one of the main state morgues in Cairo, called Zainhom. This was exactly a week ago, on Monday night. And there were 26 dead bodies in the morgue they had all been killed in the previous 3 days, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. of those who were killed, 3 of them died from asphyxiation because of the excessive use of tear gas. We're still waiting for the final reports, but this is something that certainly needs to be investigated. Everybody who was in Tahrir looked at the canisters, the tear gas canisters. The young men who were fighting, the women who were throwing rocks, all of them showed me empty canisters. They were showing them to journalists and people all over, and all of them said made in the USA. I think, it's incumbent upon the State Department to come up with a better analysis of what we're doing, selling this kind of tear gas to a country that uses tear gas in a way in such an excessive way on people who are demanding a transition to civilian democracy, because that's what this is about. And as long as the U.S. continues to support an unrepresentative military junta, these kind of protests are not going to stop. They might calm down for a bit now that there's elections. There might be turn to more political negotiations. But people are going to return to the streets if the military junta does not make very clear steps towards transitioning to a real, accountable, representative civilian democracy.
Your picture, I just wanted to mention, Anjali, that went viral, that you took in Cairo. Describe it for us, where you were and what we're seeing with people being dragged by security forces into garbage, into piles of garbage.
Yeah, that picture was taken, I think, at 5:04 p.m. on Sunday evening, Cairo time. It was just minutes after the Central Security Forces and military police came into Tahrir Square and raided the square, emptying it out of people. So the way Tahrir is set up is it's this giant square in the middle of the city with roads leading into it from all around. And one of those roads was which leads to the Interior Ministry, is where most of the fighting took place. So there was a large crowd of people on that street, Mohammed Mahmoud, where people were fighting. And excessive tear gas was being used, rubber bullets, in some cases live ammunition, though the Military Council continues to deny this, as well as the Interior Ministry continues to deny this. And for a while, it was just a back and forth. And then all of a sudden, the Central Security Forces and the military police came into the square from that road, and people started rushing. I was in one of the side streets, got heavily tear gassed, so I ran down another side street and was standing on that very street corner where I took the picture just to take a breath and assuming that things would calm down in a minute. And I saw the entire square fleeing, all running, and saw the security forces trucks coming in. So I rushed across the street, and there's a friend, a wonderful man, Pierre Soufi, who has an apartment right overlooking the square where a lot of activists gather, and it's been a real place of refuge. And I ran up there and took the picture from his balcony. We were all shaking and very upset because you could see the security forces firing into the crowds and crowds running, and you had this crush of people right on that street corner. I think a previous image you showed showed that. And then as people left, there was just bodies lying there, 8 bodies left. And I've been trying to find out if they were killed or if they were unconscious or what happened. I still don't have a clear answer as to what happened to them. And there's a video that some people who were on the balcony also took off at that same moment of policemen dragging bodies and dumping them into that garbage pile right there. It was an extremely disturbing thing to witness, and that video, I think, got very many hits. This picture got around very much, and several people who came to the square the next day, several revolutionary youth associations called for a 1 million-person march the next day. And when people came, a lot of them said they came because they saw that video and they saw that picture.
And Anjali, in terms of this, these elections now and what it means in terms of the future direction of the country, I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about what the economic situation has been like the past year, because obviously with so many protests and so much repression, there's got to have been a major impact on the daily living standards of the people of Egypt, and a sense at some point that people want some normalcy in their lives.
Yeah, I mean, this is the thing. It's there's really in some ways a tug of war between people who want to complete the revolution, who see this as an incomplete revolution, and I think many people do see that in this way. But there's also a lot of people, you know, large unemployment figures, large poverty figures in Egypt, whose standards of living have not improved at all since the revolution. And the economy has taken a very big hit since the revolution. And it's very hard to keep convincing people of the need to come out and be in the square, to keep protesting when they have seen very little improvement in their daily lives. And there's this, when the state media, which is controlled by the military council now, you know, keeps emphasizing the need for stability and security, it's something that people do take to heart and people do want. There is this, the past 9 months have been very unpredictable. There's been explosions of violence. You know, every few months something happens. In October, there was the incident that happened in front of the state media building, in front of Maspero, where the military ran over people and 27 mostly Coptic Christian protesters were killed. And there's very little accountability that follows. There's really a sense of impunity. So there's a very righteous sense of outrage among activists and those who are following these issues very closely. But on the other side, because there's so little improvement in the economic situation, you know, I think some people feel that, you know, the most important thing to have is stability. Having said that, there's also been an unprecedented wave of strikes that have sort of continued since the revolution. We've had several guests on who've talked about the, you know, very strong labor movement before the revolution that led up to the revolution and that were critical during the revolution. But these have continued in the past several months, with doctors' associations going on a nationwide general strike, public school teachers, transit workers. So it's, you know, you've had people coming out in very large numbers demanding higher wages, demanding better working conditions. So there is a sense that, you know, people feel empowered to come out and demand their rights and improve their economic situation. And I think a lot of people make the argument that if if Egypt does see a transition to civilian rule sooner rather than later, that's only going to help the economy and create a sense of stability.
So at this point, the word is that the Muslim Brotherhood's Freedom and Justice Party has something like 40% of the seats that were run for. And explain exactly, that's not 40% of the seats in the parliament, because only a portion of the seats were up now.
Yeah, the voting system that's been put in place in Egypt has been a bit of a mystery to most people in Egypt, even experts. It's being conducted. It's the first historically free elections in Egypt, so people are very excited about it and very excited about taking part. But it's been quite confounding to most. It's a 3-stage election, and every stage, it's spread out across 3 months, and there's, within each stage, there's different districts that go to the polls. And at each stage, there's a list system as well as individuals. So when people go to vote, you vote for a party list as well as individuals. You know, what the results we've seen so far are just from the first stage, which included voters from Cairo, Alexandria, the Red Sea, and several other smaller towns in Egypt. And the results, yes, you've seen a very large showing for the Muslim Brotherhood.
It would seem to me that because there is a 3-stage process, that this actually favors anyone who's got any kind of a major organization, because what will happen now is the Brotherhood's cadre, or their activists, will be able to shift from those districts that participate in the first election and move to the 2nd stage districts and the 3rd stage districts. So you don't really need a national organization. As long as you have any kind of an organization, you will have a disproportionate impact because of the way the election is broken up. Instead of having everyone vote on the same day, that would require either a level of organization for the people to vote on their own without party leaders trying to get them out to the polls in one way or another.
Yeah, that's right. And the Muslim Brotherhood is the most organized political force right now in Egypt. And I think it's no surprise. I think everyone expected them to do very well in the elections. And that's why they were pushing very hard to have elections, not to postpone elections after the horrible violence of last week that left 42 people dead. A number of people were thinking about possibly, calling for the elections to be postponed or perhaps boycotting, or some campaigns, some parties suspended their campaigns, including Asma Mahfouz from April 6. She suspended her campaign. She was running as an individual candidate in one part of Cairo. But they were very insistent on the elections taking place, and they received a lot of flack for that from activists who were very critical. But it's likely that, they will continue to do well. Even the round of elections that just took place, several people noted that there were Brotherhood volunteers at every poll station across the country helping people, not necessarily campaigning, because that's technically illegal, but because it's so complicated, people weren't sure where exactly to go, and they had iPads and were telling people where they should go, and they would write down the number of their polling booth on a little piece of paper that had the list of their candidates.
I got a chance to talk to Asma Mahfouz when she came to New York to address Occupy Wall Street. Asma Mahfouz, the 26-year-old young woman who right before the January 25th protest made this video, her head covered, not her face covered, naming herself very brave. Mubarak is still in power, telling people to come down to Tahrir. She became very well known for these videos. And she talked about running. This was Asma down at Wall Street.
Now I'm running for parliament elections. Maybe someday I can run for the presidency.
And what platform are you running on? What are you promising?
My party is called Egyptian Stream. It's ideology for the Egyptian stream. It's very neutral.
Egyptians?
Stream. Yeah, and we believe that we can make any change unless the people is coming with us and to become one hand to build our new Egypt.
What do you think of Occupy Wall Street? You're looking at it right now. You just addressed it.
It's a small, it's a small Tahrir Square. Really?
As soon as she came, I was talking to her. She was like, "Oh no, let me go around, let me go and feel it."
Yeah, I would like to go to under any tent here to join you. عايزة أدخل تحت أي خيمة.
She wants to go like in any tent so she can get the memories back.
It's great, really is great. And all the people here is great and very brave and strong.
And what message do you have for young women today?
You are very strong. Women are stronger than men, really. This is not just words, but the reality is that women have many things can do in life and for change and for freedom. So you have to believe in your own power. If you don't believe in your own power, you couldn't change anything. So you have to believe in yourself because you are very, very strong.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
That was Asma Mahfouz at Occupy Wall Street. And Anjali, she did run for parliament, but
I believe she suspended her campaign and was one of the few candidates who did. Some of the other parties also suspended their campaigns during the period of turmoil in Tahrir last week. She didn't win the seat. I believe Amr Hamzawi, a liberal candidate, won in that district. It's interesting because in that one district, there were 3 liberal candidates who were running. Her, a very popular, well-known blogger who goes by the name Sand Monkey, and Amr Hamzawi, a liberal political figure. And I believe that Amr won that seat.
We're going to break and then come back. Democracy Now! Special correspondent Anjali Kamat back from Cairo, Egypt last night. The results are coming in. It looks like of the people who voted, something like 40% of the seats that were up have gone to the Muslim Brotherhood and the Salafists.
So the Salafists took an additional 25%.
Additional 25.
Which was the bigger surprise, is that right?
The real surprise, yeah. That the liberals came in third. I think most people assumed that the contest would really be between the Brotherhood and the liberal bloc, the Egyptian bloc, Kutla al-Masriya. But the Salafists did very well. Possibly because Alexandria was also in this round, and the Salafists, the Noor party, is based in Alexandria. But we'll see in the coming rounds whether
and their
they can.
Platform?
It's hard to tell right now, but it's they're you know, people are very concerned about the Salafists for their conservative worldview. On the other hand, bringing them into the mainstream of politics, I think people feel like, you know, this is a political game and people are going to make concessions and, you know, really imposing. I don't think anyone's really worried that they're going to try and impose Sharia on Egypt or try and transform the country into a very, you know, into a Taliban kind of state. That's not on the, you know, that's not what people are afraid of at all. I think people's fears are that any of these parties that win will continue to cut deals with the ruling military council and sell out the people.
We're talking to Anjali Kamat back in a minute.